statements from 6 of his clients.
It's psychological, obviously. We're dealing with people, many of whom have mental health issues, including addiction and other concerns. The reactions I'm getting are people who are in a state of panic. They are terrified about their mental health. They're terrified about their physical health.
Resson says he's doing what he can to address the issue by filing a Freedom of Information request to get the issues at the jail in writing, and plans to air the issue in court at an upcoming sentencing hearing.
From my perspective, it's just about liberty and respect for my clients, and knowing that, jail is about separation from society. It's not about a punishment beyond that. It's not supposed to be severe. It's not supposed to be harsh. It's not supposed to worsen your mental or physical health.
So in an emailed response, the Ministry of the Solicitor General responded to the inmates' concerns, saying the West Detention Centre has had some partial lockdowns over the past few weeks, resulting from some medically isolating COVID-positive inmates and staff shortages because of staff self-isolating at home. In partial lockdowns, every effort is made to ensure the hygiene and medical needs of inmates in that unit are met, and showers and clean laundry are available daily. The ministry also confirmed there are capacity pressures at the facility it calls temporary, and says it's exploring options to balance the inmate population. Chris?
Thanks, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. Just after midnight, Ontario will again be subject to a 4-week-long stay-at-home order. The Premier says the rate at which people are ending up in intensive care with COVID-19 increased so dramatically in the last few days, it's outpacing even the most dire scenario predicted by provincial modeling. He says that's why he moved today to impose another stay-at-home order on the province. Mike Crawley has more.
Some last-minute shopping before Ontario's new state of emergency kicks in 1 minute after midnight tonight. Ontarians are being told to stay home, except to get such things as groceries, medications, or health care. The other exceptions are exercise and doing work that cannot be done remotely. Non-essential retailers will be allowed to stay open, but only for curbside pickup.
To boil it down as simple as possible, folks, please, unless it's for an essential reason, please stay home.
The government's own science advisors called for a stay-at-home order last Wednesday.
Well, here we are today, just getting a lockdown 1 week later. And unfortunately, with exponential growth, that 1 week is a huge difference.
The move comes only after fierce pressure from people across the health system.
We are seeing our hospitals really full to the brim.
This is the biggest crisis in modern Ontario hospital history.
We're in a troubling spot in Ontario, so the status quo isn't sustainable, and something needs to be done.
Today, Premier Doug Ford, his health minister, and the chief medical officer repeatedly tried to justify the delay by saying the third wave is surging faster than they expected.
The reality is, despite everything we've done so far, the COVID-19 situation in Ontario is getting worse.
The ICU admissions went up quite rapidly that we didn't see and anticipate.
In late February, the government's advisors called the next few weeks critical and warned of the risk of a third wave. By mid-March, the increase of cases and the spread of variants was clear, yet the government announced looser restrictions. Last week, the advisors called for the stay-at-home order that didn't come until today.
Quite frankly, we were alarmed weeks ago, as were many of my colleagues in the critical care emergency health sectors in the province.
Admissions to ICUs in the past week are increasing faster than the worst case scenario predicted by our experts.
But that's not actually true. The modelers' forecasts for intensive care patients are proving bang on.
The data suggested that we were going to be in this scenario several weeks ago, and so it was predicted.
The stay-at-home order is similar to what was imposed in January. One difference, in-person shopping at discount and big box stores will be restricted to only essential items. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
There's support for the new changes in Windsor-Essex, the medical officer of health saying that it should help prevent the spread, but there's also worry about how this order will impact people when home isn't a safe place.
Well, I think what we are seeing is an increase in the case rates everywhere. And we have also started to see some increase in our community as well. And we know when early actions are taken, it prevents a long-term impact. And if we delay taking the action, it would have a much bigger and a worse impact in our community. So I think if we just look at what today's numbers are, then yes, someone would argue that it may be harsh for our region, but with the trend where we are heading, it can get worse.
It's been a tough year for sure, and I think that it's been especially hard for people who are forced to be staying at home when home is not a safe place to be. So some people we've been hearing stories of more pronounced, more heightened violence than what people may have been experiencing before. And I think part of it is that people are having a harder time connecting outside the home and getting away from the situation. And so, some of the stresses of being at home are more pronounced.
And then there's those with the vaccine. They're left wondering what this means for them. Vaccinated people still follow the same rules as everyone else. An epidemiologist we spoke with says the government should be thinking about updating those guidelines.
What you can do safely when you receive this new vaccine, clearly it reduces your risk. The guidelines to say, here's all the activities you can do once you've received this new vaccine with other people who have been vaccinated, they're being developed. So you're right. We need to develop clear guidelines around what you can do now you've been vaccinated. If you've received 1 dose, what you can do. If you've received 2 doses, what you can do. How does that intersect with your baseline risk? Like if you're elderly and you have multiple health issues and you've been vaccinated, what can you do now?
You heard Dr. Ahmed talk about today's cases. 41 new cases of COVID-19 reported this morning, and the health unit says that 2 more people have died. Both are men, one in his 80s, the other a man in his 90s. 405 people have died with COVID-19 since the pandemic started. As of this morning, 404 people have an active case of COVID-19 in Windsor-Essex. 160 are variants of concern. Nearly 1 in 5 cases reported between March 30th and April 5th, or last Tuesday to this Monday, were a case with a variant of concern. Windsor-Essex has 7 zones now called COVID hotspots by the province. These spots are now priority areas for vaccinations. As CBC's Katerina Georgieva shows us, the hardest hit area in Windsor has one of the lowest vaccination rates in the region.
Here's the big picture. 7 hot zones in Windsor-Essex. The hardest hit by COVID, Leamington and Kingsville. That's because of a high number of cases among farm workers in those areas. In Windsor, 5 hot zones: South Central, Walkerville, East Windsor, Sandwich Town, the neighboring postal code east of Sandwich in the university area, and downtown Windsor, the hardest hit zone in the city.
It's not completely surprising. I mean, obviously, we know that if you correlate that with both incomes and people's socioeconomic status, that there would be a definite correlation there.
Some areas are doing quite well. These are the top 3 areas for vaccination rates. They also happen to be relatively affluent areas. Here are the zones with the worst rates. They happen to mostly consist of lower income neighborhoods, especially downtown. It's got the highest COVID rate in the city at 3.15% and has among the lowest vaccine rates at 12.5%. This is the same zone that saw a major outbreak at the downtown Mission in February, and the same area where a major outbreak at FW Bagley shut down the school late last year. This reflective of the realities of those who live here. Many work low-income jobs where they can't work from home, often putting themselves at risk of getting COVID-19.
These are sometimes people where language is a barrier, other issues as far as not maybe fully understanding what's available and when. So the engagement for many of these types of residents as well is harder to get through to them many ways.
Compare vaccination rates in this area, postal code N9A, to all of Windsor-Essex. The difference is staggering. Bordelin says the new prioritization plan might help a bit, but the barriers continue to exist and a more targeted approach is needed.
Until we deal with the equity issue, none of those other things will be rectified.
For some who use social services in the downtown core, it's good news that the area will now be prioritized. But this woman wishes more action had come sooner.
People that are typically like homeless, they can't isolate, from themselves, and they have a hard time. It's not always the fault of their own. They're just suffering a lot, doing this situation, and it's very hard for mental health issues increasing and food insecurity and that sort of thing.
She's already got her shot, and she's eager for more to do the same.
People need to be vaccinated, right away.
Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
Canada's Immunization Advisory Agency is standing by its decision to allow an extended delay in the delivery of second doses of those vaccines. The agency says it will allow more Canadians to be inoculated sooner, and the country's medical officers agree. CBC's David Cochran has the details.
Canada's vaccine supply is growing, but it's far from abundant. So the National Advisory Committee on Immunization says spacing doses up to 4 months apart is still the right approach.
Right now, the effort and energy is getting first dose in as many arms as quickly as possible to protect as many people as possible, especially given the ongoing transmission in a number of jurisdictions.
Ongoing transmission fueled by a surge in variants of concern, threatening to overwhelm hospital systems in Canada's largest provinces.
The more the virus transmits itself, the more it replicates, the more likely it is to create a variant of concern eventually. And so the goal here is really to give that protection to as many people as possible.
The idea is that the dosing intervals will shorten when vaccines are more plentiful and most, if not all, Canadians have had their first shot.
Our estimate is that eventually we will be able to go, close to 2.5 months or 2 months interval between doses, but that really will depend on how many doses come in.
We are well positioned to have enough vaccines for everybody to have both doses by September.
The advisory committee says high-risk patients should get priority for that second dose during that second phase of vaccinations. But its advice to provinces is overwhelmingly to stay the course, to allow more people to be protected as soon as possible. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And if you've strolled down Ottawa Street in Windsor, you've seen storefronts that look a little emptier lately. 14 stores have either moved or closed down. Many weren't able to survive the pandemic.
Our mandate as part of an arm to the City of Windsor is to promote Ottawa Street area, especially the BIA area. And we also want to make sure that all our storefronts are full. And now when you go down the street, you see for lease signs. It's not a good impression.
Now, he says those closures are concerning. It's been confusing keeping up with the ever-changing lockdown measures, he added. Another business owner says he's not surprised by the number, but it's upsetting to see.
It makes me depressed. I don't think it's going to be a total surprise or shock. It's been a long time dealing with COVID, even though it's just been a year, but a lot of uncertainty and people trying to pivot and survive. But you get to a point where, how much more can we take of this?
He says the thought of closing down has crossed his mind too. Instead, he's reduced staff and store hours. But Otto says he's trying to stay optimistic. 5 more businesses have come and taken over some of those empty spots. He hopes the lockdown isn't extended so that he can welcome back customers to the area next month. Health Canada is recalling hand sanitizer made by Hiram Walker over an unacceptable ingredient. Some sanitizer contains ethyl acetate. Those who may have used the product can check to see if yours is affected. Here's the national producer number. The recall affects that lot number that you see. There are no expiration dates as they were not printed on the label. For more information on this, you can go to our website. We have stuff posted there on this, cbc.ca/Windsor. Now, the Premier was on the defensive front because despite calls from doctors on the front lines, mayors, and even his own science table, the province is once again not introducing paid sick leave.
My message to the opposition and everyone else, because there's a lot of people that are playing politics right now, and it's totally irresponsible. They're doing a disservice to the people that they're telling this to. There's paid sick leave from the federal government.
The benefit from the federal government, not the same as getting paid sick days. The Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit is not automatic, only compensates you after you've already lost pay. It also pays out lower than minimum wage at a maximum of $500 per week for up to 2 weeks. Paid sick days would be automatic and would allow workers to take a day off if they're feeling sick and not lose a penny of their pay. If you'd like to sign up for that federal benefit, you can head to canada.ca/COVID-19. Take a live look outside here in the city's core. We see the shadows from the sun, a fireball in the sky, making the day a little bit easier to get through. Certainly these sunny ones are a little more fun. Colette Kennedy comes with the forecast next. Now, it's not every day that you get an ice fishing find quite like this one.
What do you want, buddy? Hey? What are you after?
A curious moose there visiting a father and son duo near Thunder Bay this past weekend. Owen Steele, his dad Doug, they were out fishing when they spotted what they believe was a young female moose wandering out onto the ice. He said at one point one of his legs fell through, but it seemed to quickly recover I ended up coming close, not too close though. Want to keep the distance. Even following Owen around a bit on the lake there. Of course, like any good angler, Owen says he briefly stopped recording to reel in the fish that he had hooked. Colette Kennedy, you look at the delicate steps of that massive moose on those pieces of ice. It's just, I don't know. Have you been near a moose before, Colette? I gotta ask.
I have been actually, not that near, but
Not
yes.
that near,
yeah. How about you?
Yeah, Newfoundland, right? We both did time out there. These creatures just massive.
Yeah, they are massive. But I was just thinking too, like what a way to multitask. You're fishing over here, checking out the mooses. You know, things are good with the moose.
Absolutely.
That's my kind of multitask there.
Doug better have had one of those plaid hats with the ear flaps on, or else, you know, I don't know if it gets any more Canadian than that.
That's the perfect image right there. How about this image with some beautiful temperatures? Yeah, each day getting a little warmer here. So today, okay, we might be rounding up a little bit, but 27 degrees, and it's been kind of spreading slowly inward. So 26 for Sarnia, towards Wyerton, even in the low 20s in London. Low 20s again, seeing 22 degrees there. So that heat is kind of gradually making its way eastward. It's a pretty massive system, the next one that's going to move in, as we are into a somewhat active pattern. So kind of every few days or something, we'll see a system coming through. But this one's a real slow mover. And so because of that, we've got okay conditions tonight. And then we'll see things changing later in the day tomorrow. So our current temperatures now still holding at 25. You see where you're closer to the lakeshore, you're getting obviously to some cooler readings there, but otherwise lots of low 20s around southwestern Ontario. There are the conditions, a few things bubbling up into Michigan. I don't anticipate those are going to give us any trouble tonight. Just see partly cloudy skies. Through the day tomorrow, some increasing cloudiness as we get into the afternoon and early evening, some scattered showers, some embedded thunderstorms possible rolling in then late day tomorrow. Prior to that, it is going to be another pleasant one, and it's going to be another warm one. Into Friday, a bit of isolated shower activity there too, and then we'll kind of see changes into the weekend. It's sort of a split decision in terms of the good days or drier days and the wetter ones. Overnight tonight, look at your temperatures here, single digit for London, 13 though, Windsor and Leamington. And then tomorrow, those highs, mid-20s, a little bit above, 26. There you go, Friday, slightly cooler. And then as we get into next week, we will see temperatures coming down again. But we got a few days to go yet, Chris.
No, still a lot to enjoy. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
And speaking of things that we all enjoy, treasure hunting. It's made a resurgence in Manitoba. People can find trinkets with the help of their phones. We'll show you that next.
Jam.
Now, this pandemic has prompted a bunch of us to pick up new hobbies. A modern-day version of a treasure hunt is also seeing a resurgence. It's called geocaching. CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse has the story.
Today is a beautiful spring day, and Jordan McPeak is getting ready for a day of hunting in the great outdoors. McPeak isn't new to geocaching. In fact, he's been doing it since 2008 and has collected nearly 4,500 hiding places to his name.
I went on what we call a streak of I found one a day for about 3.5 years.
McPeak's streak not only took him around Manitoba, pre-pandemic, he managed to keep that streak going when he was visiting other cities.
I hop off the plane and get to the get to the hotel and run out and grab one before midnight so I could say I got one that day.
Geocaching involves using a GPS device to find hidden little packages or caches hidden by other geocachers. The packages can be hidden anywhere, like in a park or under a stone, to even being found in plain sight, like in a mall parking lot. It's been around for years, but it's only now during the pandemic that it's starting to attract some new fans.
As time's gone on, the evolution of smartphones has definitely made it more accessible.
Nathan Catcher is the president of the Manitoba Geocachers Association. He says geocaching is a great pandemic activity because it's done outside. You can do it alone or with family. It's for the young and old, and it doesn't require a lot of equipment. McPeak, with his pen and tweezers in hand, says he enjoys the variety geocaching gives him.
Something that gets you outside, gets you active. For someone like me, it helps in providing some motivation for getting out.
Marjorie Dowhouse, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We stream the show live on Facebook and Twitter. If you're watching, leave us a comment if you've ever been geocaching. We'd love to check out some of the spots around here. The Rick Mercer Report, it's up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.